SANDHAN. All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
A very good evening to all of you. Welcome to SANDHAN. Our topic is an overview of educational psychology and psychology. So first of all, we will start with what is psychology. As everybody is knowing, nowadays there is a trend to go after psychology. Most of the students are enrolling for psychology because as such psychology is a study of behavior. But years before it was like it derived from the Greek word that is psychos and logos. Psychos means the psyche and logos is the rational course of study of behavior. First and foremost, psychology was a study of like soul. Soul cannot be studied, okay. Then afterwards it was a study of mind. Mind can also not be studied. Then it was the study of consciousness. Now consciousness is something that is related to, we can perceive the consciousness when the person is at present with us, but we can't judge him in his unconsciousness. So after lot of surveys and everything, it was found it is the study of behavior. So in simple languages, psychology means the study of behavior. Now let us look at to the PowerPoint. Etymologically, the very word psychology means the study of the soul, as it is derived from the two Greek words psyche, meaning soul, and logos signifying a rational course of study. As I told you earlier also that the soul cannot be studied nor the mind cannot be studied. And furthermore, there are a lot of perceptions given. For an example, William James has told in his book Principles of Psychology that was published first in 1890, the description and explanation of state of consciousness as such. Now if you can see in the screen, you will find William Wundt, who first given the psychological lab in the University of Leipzig in Germany, and according to him it is something is known as science of consciousness. With the advent of the modern period, it transformed from the science of consciousness to the science of behavior. We are studying the study of behavior in psychology. Now what is behavior? According to Woodworth, any manifestation of life is activity, and behavior is a collective name for these activities. Now what is manifestation? What we are doing, knowingly or unknowingly, all those activity accumulates into a behavior. Now there are three types of connotative activities. One is known as the motor activity. Let us look at the teletalk. Motor activity means, for an example, we can perceive the behavior in dancing, in walking, in swimming, all those activity which require a motor activity. In the same way, we have affective activity. Affective means that deals with all the emotions, be it love, hate, jealousy, etc. So all this comes under affective activity. Then there is cognitive activity. Cognitive means that which is intellectual. For an example, your imagination, your intellectual things, all this comes under cognitive activity. Now let us move forward. Now there are two branches of psychology. One is known as pure psychology and other is known as applied psychology. Now what is pure psychology? Pure psychology provides a framework and theory of the subject. Its content deal with the formulation of psychological principles and theories, and it also suggests various methods and techniques for the analysis, assessment, modification and improvement of behavior. For an example, if there is any formulation, there are principles given, or there is a assessment or analytical value of chances of improvement in the behavior, so that particular field is known as pure psychology. Applied psychology. Applied psychology means it refers to the application of psychological rules, principles, theories and techniques with reference to real life situation. Whatever thing is applied in the theoretical basis, it is applied in the real life experiences. Now, which are the branches of pure psychology? Number one is general psychology. Now, what is general psychology? General psychology means that deals with the study of the behavior of any person, that is known as general psychology. Abnormal psychology. Abnormal psychology deals with all the parts of malfunctioning in the behavior due to some abnormalities. Social psychology. Social psychology means dealing with the society. As you all know that man is a social animal, so his behavior is literally perceived in social psychology. Experimental psychology. Those principles and theories are tested with the time on animals or on persons. That type of psychology is known as experimental psychology. Physiological psychology. Physiological psychology means that deals with the organs of the body. For an example, the brain system, the nervous system, the gland system, they are overtly or covertly involved in the behavior. That is known as physiological psychology. Parapsychology. Parapsychology, nowadays it has a trend. We say that it is a telepathy or rebirth or any phenomena of new behavior is known as parapsychology. Geopsychology. Geo as the term itself derives, it relates to climatic change, climatic change, soil, weather, all this affects our behavior. For an example, nowadays it's very rainy, so we can't meet up, we are fixed in one particular position, we can't move out of the house, so it affects our behavior also indirectly or directly. So that is also a geopsychology. Then developmental psychology. Developmental psychology means that deals with all the stages of our life. For an example, infancy, childhood, adulthood, youth, all these stages we study the behavior in these stages. So that is known as developmental psychology. Branches of pure psychology. They are first educational psychology. Educational psychology means the behavior of the students as well as the teacher during the teaching learning process. That is known as educational psychology. Clinical psychology, again it is something that is experimented, then retried, and then coming to a conclusion in a set environment. That is known as clinical psychology. Industrial psychology means dealing with the industries. For an example, the market level, the communication between the colleagues, the business work area, all this comes under industrial psychology. Legal psychology. Legal psychology is the apprehension of the criminals, the false witnesses, all those judiciary systems and in which human beings are involved directly or indirectly. That psychology is known as legal psychology. Military psychology. Now, for an example, there is a war. Okay, the war prolongs for a long time. Then what happens? It requires very lot of time, and in that time the soldiers gets he is suffocated in this mental equilibrium. So that time this psychologist help to recover them from this traumatic situation. So that particular psychology is known as military psychology. And the last is political psychology. Any political leader can become popular only when he knows the psychology of the person or the mass. That is known as knowing the behavior of the mass, how to propagandize, how to become a good leader in the society, only when you have a good knowledge of political psychology. Let us move forward. Now today our topic is educational psychology. Now educational psychology means it is as I said is one of the main branches of psychology, dealing mainly with the problems, process and products of education. To quote Skinner, as you all might be knowing, B.F. Skinner is a great educational psychologist, great experimenter. According to him, educational psychology is that branch of psychology which deals with teaching and learning. There are two other great people like Crow and Crow. We always quote Crow and Crow. He has given that educational psychology describes and explains the learning experiences of individual from birth through old age. It is like study of the behavior depends upon the circumstances right from the cradle to the grave. Okay, educational psychology is something that explains the environment of classroom, teaching learning process, teaching methods, techniques and everything, and how fruitful it is to certain extent. That is shown in educational psychology, and what are the improvements that we can do, that also shows in educational psychology. According to Peel, educational psychology is a science of education. Science of education means, science means logical thinking, reasoning. So educational psychology deals with the main reasoning and logical part of education. If certain methods are applied to a subjects, how fruitful they are for teaching that particular subject is also dealt with education psychology. Number one, before taking a plunge into educational psychology, we must know what is the nature of educational psychology. It possesses a well organized, systematic and universally accepted body of facts supported by the relevant psychological laws and principles. For an example, if a teacher is taking a particular topic in the class, the students are very much interested, the teacher is also very cooperative and there is a very healthy atmosphere. But the teacher cannot go into the mind of the student because a human's mind is always complex. Maybe he is physically present in the class but mentally somewhere else. Okay, so at that time he should be very well organized and systematic to understand the behavior of the learner when he is learning something in the class. Studying the behavior of the learner in relation to his educational environment. We generally find that in the beginning hours of the class, for an example, the morning hours, the first period is very vibrant because the mind of the children are very fresh during that time. Afterwards, after the recess, what happens? The child gets deteriorated. He feels that now I have to go home, or now I am saturated by this lecture, so I don't want to pay attention. So that time of circumstances, the learner should understand the teacher should understand that the learner is facing to the similar problems. Next, it employs a scientific methods and adopt a scientific approach for studying learners' behavior. Nowadays, you can see that many of the schools not only in Ahmedabad but all over India, we have this guidance and counseling cell. That means each student, if a student have a problem in one particular subject or a one particular topic or any one particular incident that he can't communicate with the teacher, he can go directly to this counseling cell, guidance cell, so that he can get a particular guidance and counseling from those people, and he can make himself not adjustable but he can acquire the knowledge that is passing through in the class. The process and product of these studies are sufficiently scientific as a high degree of logical viability, objectivity, reliability and validity of things are maintained. Each and every, as I said, that it is the science of education. Each and every method while it is introduced in the class is tried and tested. That means the viability, the objectivity, the reliability and validity of that particular subject method in teaching that particular topic gets increased. Secondly, educational psychology does not accept any hearsay and does not take anything for granted. For an example, if you go in the class, if a teacher is continuously teaching in the class, we assume that the teacher is tired or he or she is not giving proper attention to the students, so he can't teach the next thing. But we cannot judge the mental activity of the person. In our life also, in our family also, in our school also, the teacher might be active, but because of his physical appearance, we feel that he is not able. So we believe that he can't teach the next thing. But maybe he is capable for teaching that particular thing if given more time to him. Okay. Now, educational psychology is most interested in with what and why of happenings in the present instead of caring for the past. What we can do, why it is like this. In a real classroom teaching, we always feel that those students who are questioning us, those students are asking why it is happened. For an example, it is H2O. Then the students are asking why. If the one of the student is asking why ma'am it is H2O, why can't it be H3O? So what happens? Because of the tight curriculum and the syllabus, our mentality, the teacher's mentality to make him sit down. Okay, I will explain you later, or okay, he will never give the answer of why. Because of not giving the answer of why, we are sometimes, our students or our children or we ourselves are very confused in one particular subject, maybe of maths, maybe of English, because we are never having a logical reply of answering why, or why it is like this, or what is the reason behind this. Okay, so psychology says that if you are applying any method, or if you are teaching any class, you should be very much open to the questions posed by the students. Each and every stream has its own scope, but the scope of educational psychology is very vast. It mainly deals with the learner, the teaching learning process, the learner's activity, and the teacher's mental health. Now let us see what are the scope of educational psychology. The individuality and personality of the learner must be known before he is taught or subjected to behavior modification. Each of the students in your class are individually different. They are coming from different backgrounds. They have different attitude towards learning. You can control their physical activity, but you can't control their mental activity. Maybe they are saying yes in front of you, but they are saying no in their mental activity. So it is something that is pertained only for the in physical appearance of the learners. But as a teacher, you should know what is the mental activity going in through the learner's mind. Personality traits and character. These also make an important assumption over here. It is like when a teacher is dressed very sober, very nicely, enters in the class, talks very well, but it appears that the students like her personality, but not equally she is good in the content. Sometimes it happens that a teacher is good in content, but not her personality is not so effective. So we should not judge by those things. We should be judging how his or her interaction in the class is, how they are going to face the students and face the Y type of answers or giving the Y type of answers for the students. Duties and responsibility of a teacher. Every time we are saying that the teacher should be like this, the teacher should be like that, he should be noble, he should the teaching profession itself is a noble profession, the teacher should be very kind, he should have tolerance, patience, etc. But the real thing is that when we say about the duties and responsibility